You're listening to On Shifting Ground from the Commonwealth Club in World Affairs. I'm Ray Suarez.
Continue. So I have this crazy idea. It's like obsession. I started to buy all Ukrainian books I can find, especially new one or the last edition, like the last copies of something, because I feel that I need to save them and somehow to protect all these books. Then I will protect Ukrainian heritage.
This was recorded in Kyiv by a woman named Katerina Lazarovich, or Katya for short.
I know this sounds crazy, but yeah, right now I have one-room apartment and it's just filled up with the books everywhere, and I can't even finish reading all of them because there are too many books right now.
Katya's obsession may have something to do with her job. She's an archivist who works for Ukraine's largest contemporary art center, preserving Ukrainian culture and works of art. At first, Katya said the very idea of war was unthinkable to her.
We were not seriously expecting that Russia would attack Ukraine with missiles, with bombings, with all these forces.
War is usually discussed in broad terms, the geopolitics or battle strategy. But it's also deeply personal, and Katya's collection of Ukrainian books is just one small way that war touches everything in Ukraine, including her bookshelf. Later in the program, you will hear stories of individuals living in the shadow of conflict around the world. But first, we asked Katya to tell us more about her life in this current moment.
Hello, my name is Lazarevich Katerina, or Katya. I am an archivist in Pinchuk Art Center. It's a center for contemporary art in Kyiv. Today it's the 4th of March 2024. I'm not sure about the time. It's 3 p.m. I think. Yeah, let it be 3 p.m. I'm sitting on the floor and it's very comfortable and cozy. I feel a little bit nervous because I need to put my thoughts into English language properly so everybody would understand. My routine is interrupted sometimes because of this rocket challenge and air alerts, but for now our art center works. Now we're preparing new exhibitions and we'll have visitors and many people, many new exhibits and public program, lectures and research. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, what's changed since the war began in 2022? After the full-scale invasion, my life changed dramatically. The 24th of February of 2022 was the scariest day in my life. I won't forget this day ever, and the feeling when I woke up at 5 a.m. because my mom called me and said that the war started. It was very scary and just so, I would say, surrealistic. We were not expecting this to happen. Then the next half of the 2022, we moved from Kiev to Bucha region, and then from Bucha we moved to Western Ukraine. Me and my husband's parents and our 4 cats. So yeah, everything was just a mess because you need to go somewhere. There are like so many people searching for help. We just didn't know what will happen to us and to our country. From spring till the end of summer of 2022, I stayed in my friend's house in Estonia. They invited me to live with them for a while till it will be safe. I really think that Estonia and Baltic states understand what we are going through and the danger of being next to Russia border. So this was a very hard time in Estonia because emotionally it's very hard to get to know about all the things that were happening in Ukraine because like my parents, my sisters and my husband and his relatives and friends, they stayed in Ukraine. And I was just reading all this horrible news about the liberation of Bucha and about all these horrible deaths of civilians and these horrible war crimes committed by Russian soldiers. And it was especially scary because we stayed in this Bucha region in a village of Shpetiki, which were next to this line between Ukrainian militaries and Russian invaders. And we had some challenges in this village. And when I were already safe in Estonia, then I saw this horrible news and I realized that it could be me. It could have been me or my relatives or my friends who were staying in the same area, and you see all this horrible stuff that happened to other people just in next village to you. It was just crazy, scary, and very, I don't know, just disappointing because you started to lose your faith in humanity. And it's very frustrating because there was this horrible news and this Russian side said that it was all fake news, it's not true, and all these bodies of dead civilian raped and murdered and on the streets is all just fake and we did nothing. And somebody even believed in this. It was really horrible to understand that if you're not a witness of war, it's all just not true if you don't want to believe in it. And we're just inventing this stuff or like pretending that something is happening. In the end of summer of 2022, I finally came back to Ukraine, to Kiev, and I was so happy to see everybody. Oh, of course, I just horribly missed my husband because I haven't seen for half a year. And it was very heartbreaking to be far away from your family and your partner. I was just crazily happy to come back. And it was very funny because I had some kind of euphoria when I came back. Some parts of Kiev are not very beautiful. So I was ready to kiss every stone, all the ugly stuff or ugly architecture. It just seemed to me so beautiful and so vibrant and so vivid and feels like home. I was very happy and I'm still very happy that I'm able to live in Ukraine. Of course, it's dangerous, but I really love my country. I really love my job, my art center. I'm so grateful that we are working, we are creating exhibitions, we are showing Ukrainian and international art, that we have this ability to make a place where people and visitors can come to and see art and relax or do something other than just thinking about all this horrible stuff that is happening. Even now, each day you hear the news about some residential building being attacked by Russian missiles or Russian drones. This constant threat exists. You know that tomorrow maybe you won't meet your loved ones, or you will die, or somebody will be injured. So you are trying to be kinder and you are trying to be more protective and loving to your close friends, to your significant others, to random people, your colleagues, and just everybody you meet, even rude people in public transport, rude people on the streets. So you're trying to be kinder, nicer to them because, it can be your last day on Earth. This year I also started teaching classes for teenagers in school. And I'm also very excited about that because children and teenagers here in Ukraine are our future. So we need to make their life happy and more interesting, educate them and give them our attention. This new generation is so, how you would say, so responsible about their life choices, about citizenship. They're really into politics, into civil community. I am very excited about my job with teenagers and about the future. So what I think about the future, when you go to a job interview, usually there is this funny question about how you see yourself in 10 years, or how you imagine yourself in 10 years, what would you like to achieve? And really, in 10 years, I'm just expecting everybody will stay alive, that this war won't escalate into the Third World War, that Ukraine will be independent, safe, and there will be no nuclear apocalypse with atomic winter and all this stuff. It's very hard to think about the future, and for me especially, I'm just trying to make the small steps, doing just small things to improve your environment, your community, your society, and you're just making the small steps to do something right. I really hope that when the war is over, I will be able to answer this question about how I see myself in 10 years, and that will be some good, optimistic answer. I know that I want to stay in Ukraine. I want to improve our country. I want to improve our life and to work with the things we have. From my experience, it's better to be a citizen of your own country, not to look for something better just because you can. Some people have this choice to move and they decided not to come back to Ukraine, but it's not for me, really.
This story was recorded by Katerina Lazarevich, an archivist from Ukraine, with help from Ksenia Malik from the Pinchuk Art Center in Kyiv. It was produced by Elise Minukian. If you missed any part of this episode or want to catch up on other international stories, download our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is On Shifting Ground. I'm Ray Suarez. We just passed the second anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and 2 years on, war is still disrupting the lives and future of millions of Ukrainians. And even when the fighting ends one day, things will never be the same. In the immediate aftermath of the invasion, we reached out to our friends in Ukraine to see how they were doing, and we asked them to share what was happening on the ground. Now we're revisiting these conversations, originally aired in 2022, to mark how those first days unfolded.
When Russian full-scale invasion has started, I didn't want to leave Kyiv. I thought that it's just impossible. But on the second night, we were listening to so loud sounds of shelling so close to our building that I saw my son. He was just frightened and he was shaking, sitting in the corridor on the floor. And it looked so terrible to me, to my husband, that on the third day we decided that we should leave.
That's Ukrainian filmmaker Irina Tsiluk. You may remember her from our program back in January.
In this shadow of the possible Russian invasion, I feel that the anxiety grows around us. I know they talk about emergency kits, about some plans A, B, what to do in case of invasion. But at the same time, we just try to live, and what can we do? We can't put our lives on standby.
Now she is one of more than 10 million Ukrainians who've been forced to run for their lives, leaving their homes and their belongings. Like Irina, most have remained in country, but almost 4 million people have fled for neighboring countries, causing Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. On today's show, we dive into Europe's refugee policy, how it's shaped, and how it affects people on the ground. Later in the program, we'll hear about the harrowing journey migrants from Africa have faced when seeking refuge in Europe. But first, we focus on Ukraine. To get a sense of what it's like to make some of these life and death decisions during wartime, we asked Irina Tsiluk to record a few audio diaries on her phone.
"10 days ago, my son, my cat, and I moved from Kiev to Lviv. That was some kind of a tough decision, because most of all I wanted to stay in my Kiev, especially taking into account that my husband is defending Kiev right now. He joined Territory Defense Forces, so he takes part in the unit who defends one of Kiev's areas. But that was a moment when he told me, Ira, come on, you should leave. I want to feel free. I want to know that you are in some safer place. And I decided to leave when I saw my child shaking. He was so scared. Our Kiev was full of sounds of shellings. We were sitting in the corridor of our apartment. And I fully realized that I need to protect him. I'm the adult and I'm responsible. So we moved 3 cars, few women, many children, cats and dogs, and we had such a long trip from Kiev to the west of Ukraine. And I had my personal hell because during all this trip I was trying to decide what should I do. My friends were convincing me to go to Central or Western Europe together with them. And I felt that I just can't. So I decided spontaneously to stay in Lviv. It seems safer, and it's still the part of Ukraine. It's really important to stay in Ukraine right now for me. This is my place of power, and I want to be here as long as it is possible. How do I feel? I feel empty. Or maybe I'm just too sleepy. Because we listen to the sounds of sirens every single night. And despite the fact Lviv is safe, at least we don't have shellings here, we are forced to listen to these sounds of anxiety, and I just hate it. But I'm the mother, I'm responsible for my kid, I should wake him up. And we are going to the corridor every night, and we are waiting to the end of these sirens. And then the new day starts. Lviv is full of sun. I saw flowers yesterday. The city looks so calm and peaceful. Cafes work, food stores are full of grocery. People walk in the parks together with their children. And we try to do the same. We try to keep walking, to keep living. My son has lessons. He also takes actors' classes for refugees in Lviv. And I do so many interviews, so many writing, but I feel so empty, and it seems that I live with a smartphone in my hand because I'm scrolling and scrolling this news all the time, and I feel that I'm so far from Kiev. Maybe I should sleep few nights. Maybe I should not read news for some time, I don't know. But it seems impossible. What I really like when some European institutions invite Ukrainians and Russians to take part in some roundtable discussions now. They want to reconcile us. If you want to understand this, you should dive deeper. You should learn our history to realize that Ukrainians and Russians are very different. I hope that all these European institutions will have enough delicacy and wisdom to understand why they should not do this right now. We are facing Russia's war and genocide against Ukrainians. And you know what? I know that there are some victims of Putin's regime right now. And I had some fellow Russian filmmakers, especially documentary filmmakers. But you know what? During winter months, I've been checking their Facebook pages again and again, and I was trying to find at least something. I was trying to find some kind of a protest against this possibility of Russian full-scale invasion into my country. But they were silent. They started to do something, to sign some letters, to take part in some protests, to flee from Russia, when the war was in its full swing, and when they realized that they could be isolated. So I think that silence is some kind of a crime too. And I don't want to have any dialogues with my ex-colleagues from Russia now.
Those diaries were recorded by Irina Tsuluk in late March. World Affairs producer Andrew Stelzer spoke with Irina on March 30th from Lviv.
I think for some people who may have had to flee their country or their home city for various reasons, they can probably relate to that feeling of wanting to be there. But for others, hearing you say Kyiv is where you want to be, it makes me think of some of the things you said in the audio diaries, talking about how Ukraine is your place of power, and you talk about my Kyiv several times. Can you say more about that?
First of all, I need to say that I feel deeply rooted in my city, and I'm in love with it. I grew up here, and all my grandparents have lived in the city, so I know its complex organism quite well. And at the same time, everything depends on experience, and I fully understand people from Kharkiv, Mariupol, Chernihiv, and other cities which are in real danger now. And they should leave these cities for sure, because they should save their lives and the lives of their children. But at the same time, I fully realize that I'm Ukrainian. I want to be in my country. I want to protect it, to be connected with Ukraine. And I don't want to live in some other parallel worlds. This role of refugees is one of the most painful and frustrating. And I see that this is such a huge collective trauma. I read that few millions of children had to leave Ukraine now, and I can just imagine what kind of trauma they have now, and they will grow up, and I believe they will be traumatized, and no one knows what is ahead of us, actually. And it is also very painful and frustrating, because all these people who had to flee to other countries, they don't know what to do. Should they arrange their lives somehow in these new countries for some time? I don't know, to find a job, to find schools for their kids, and etc., etc., or they have a chance to come back soon. No one knows, and it's really complicated. I feel the same, because I feel as I live in this mode, when you can grab your suitcase every single minute and you can come back. But we don't know, because in fact, this Russian-Ukrainian war is going on for 8 years now. Okay, this full-scale invasion lasts only a month, but who knows what is ahead of us.
Thank you, Irina, and wishing you and those close to you to stay safe.
Thank you, Andrew.
Irina Tsiluk spoke with World Affairs producer Andrew Stelzer on March 30th, 2022. She's a Ukrainian filmmaker living in Kyiv. She's currently working on a new animated documentary about her own life and how it's been transformed by war.
We have been on the move since 6:30 a.m. this morning. We have been driving to the border, delivering humanitarian aid and picking up refugees, which we then brought to Germany, trying to find accommodation for them. We were driving throughout the night. Everybody was completely lethargic. We managed to stop at a fuel station, had like a breakfast. We bought also some toys for the kids, which really lightened the mood. But then messages started dripping in that Kyiv is getting bombed right now. And the atmosphere shifted quite a lot, because all of them have their sons and husbands in Ukraine still fighting. And now we're still in Poland on the way. My name is Alexander Gerz, 26 years old, and I'm a master's student at the University of Kassel, Germany.
About a week after Russia invaded Ukraine, Alex and a friend put their studies and work on pause. They packed a car with supplies and drove 11 hours to the busiest border crossing in Europe's fastest-growing refugee crisis. We asked Alex to record an audio diary of his journey with his phone. When we caught up with him, it was his third trip in 1 week.
It is currently 2 a.m. on a Sunday night. We just left a refugee camp next to a border checkpoint called Medica, which is a border checkpoint between Ukraine and Poland. The refugee camp was a huge shopping center, but it was completely emptied out, and all of the stores now are filled with refugees lying on floors. And around the shopping center there are a lot of tents with volunteers everywhere collecting everything that the people need: clothes, food, medicine. The shopping center proved to be quite challenging mentally because, well, there's just a lot of human suffering focused, condensed into one place, and you see a lot of desperation, you see a lot of trauma. Basically, almost everybody there is traumatized. You could see it in their faces. As I was coordinating all of these trips with some Russian and Ukrainian speaking groups, we got the information that there's just a lot of buses at this other checkpoint waiting to go to Germany, but they're completely empty, which I figured was quite odd. I finally figured out why. Turns out that a lot of people just don't want to go anywhere because they still have the hope that the war's gonna end, that they can return back to Ukraine. So all they want to do is just stay put at these refugee centers, at the border checkpoints, and wait for all of this to blow over. The problem is that there's a huge humanitarian crisis at these border checkpoints because there are way too many people. It's kind of getting out of hand. Piles of clothes, huge piles of sleeping bags, and it seems like people don't even know what to do with them. There's still a lot of miscommunication and there's a lot of chaos going on, but the volunteers are trying their very best to make sure that it all works out. It's basically pretty much a constant trade-off. People want to get to places and you always have to decide who to take since you have like limited space, which is quite nasty given that the place which we were yesterday looked very much like a complete humanitarian catastrophe. Then we also picked up a mom with her 2 kids, and she really wanted to go back to Ukraine. I tried to talk it out of her, but she really had her mind set. But she was robbed in Ukraine and lost her passport, so she had to go to the Czech Republic to get new passports. But we brought her and the kids to a bigger city, which was next to the border checkpoint, but all the hotels were occupied by police officers and soldiers. So we had to drop her off at a refugee center, and it was quite apocalyptic, to be honest. It was like a big sports hall filled to the brim with people, crying children. Everybody's just miserable. The volunteers are completely at their limits. So it was a nasty thing to see, but yeah, we managed to pick up 4 more people there which want to go to Germany. In total we have 8 people now in our back seats. 3 mothers, 4 children, and 1 old grandma which can barely walk. Thankfully, I was able not to consume too much news the last week due to the excessive amounts of work I had with these trips. I must admit this was a good thing after all, because I honestly don't want to confront myself so much with the current events, because I still haven't really processed them. This invasion came as such a shock to me. It was something I wasn't expecting at all. So I had a really hard time to get to terms with this new reality. So this work, although it drained me very much, it also kept me busy and gave me the chance not to sink into this hole of pondering, and I wholeheartedly hope that the talks which Ukraine and Russia are conducting right now are gonna bring this whole war to a fast end. I really hope that the European response will be more political and economic, and under no circumstances there will be military means employed. And I really hope that the US will just keep out of this whole process in its entirety, given the fact that Russia's imperial ambitions can't be thwarted by another empire.
Alex is part Ukrainian. His mother lives in western Ukraine, far from conflict zones, but not far from airstrikes. He's also part Russian, which he says has motivated him to try to help.
In the refugee center, when we left it, a guy approached me and I started talking Russian with him. He asked me if I'm Russian and told me yes, then we're gonna finish this conversation right now. I told him I'm half Russian, half Ukrainian. He said, okay, I guess that's fine. So then we talked a bit and I tried to help him as good as I could. Once he realized that I want to help him, he shook my hand and apologized, said like, yeah, you understand it's war, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I have to get back to work tomorrow. I paused my studies and I paused my work for this week. Thankfully, my boss understood that I had to do this simply because I'm in Russian and my cultural identity gives me a great sense of responsibility, not for the outbreak of the conflict, not at all, but more so for the people which suffer now in this conflict. I'm just glad I was able to do my tiny part. We're on the way back to Germany. We picked up another 6 people with this car, and we will make sure they get to Germany safe and sound. Although I understand that in the greater scheme of things, this matters nothing, I'm still glad that I did what I could, since I know that I obviously lack the means to stop the conflict from happening. I feel neither optimistic nor pessimistic. I just feel tired and content. If I have more thoughts, I'll gladly share them. But that's about it for right now.
That story was produced by Elise Manoukian. She spoke with Alex Gerz in early March 2022. Alex still provides humanitarian relief in eastern Ukraine. We'll link more information about Alex and his work in the show notes. You've been listening to On Shifting Ground, produced in partnership with KQED, with funding from listeners like you. Today's episode was produced by Sienna Barnes, Elise Manoukian, Polly Stryker, Andrew Stelzer, Joanne Jennings, and with help from Rachel Myro. It was mixed and mastered by Matteo Schimpf. Our technical supervisor is Jim Bennett. Jared Sport is our executive producer. Our music is from Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Ray Suarez. Thanks for listening.